Do you ever have those days where motivation is nowhere to be found? Yeah, me too. But the reality is, relying on motivation as a strategy is not a good one. This is where discipline comes into play. But how do you stay disciplined when you're not feeling it? Don't worry. I'm going to share my hot tips to help build habits and systems that keep you in check even on the toughest of days. Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Mary Ofori-Attah, and I am talking all things discipline. Yes, you may be tired of hearing this word, but I promise you it's going to become your best friend in the best way possible. Discipline is not supposed to be scary. It is actually our secret power to getting what we want in life and achieving our dreams, especially on those days when you're like, I just am not feeling it. I relate to this all too well, especially when I'm relying on motivation on a chronic pain day and I'm having a flare up. Motivation is not going to come, but the thing that will always be there is my discipline. So if you've ever struggled with finding motivation, finding that sort of push to get up and go and accomplish what you want, you're not the only one. This is when discipline becomes your best friend and sort of becomes that shoulder to lean on in a way, or maybe your crutch, your secret power, whatever you want to call it. Motivation can be fleeting in so many different ways, whether you're starting a new project, you're chasing a dream, a big goal, and you're not seeing the results that you want to see and you're feeling discouraged. It's really hard to get back on track and to remember why you're doing what you're doing. So having systems and routines and habits in place that allow you to rely on your discipline, to fall back into these second nature things, they're going to help you get out of this funk, get over relying on motivation when it's not going to be consistent, and rely on discipline to get you where you want to be. I always say this is one of the struggles as a creative person is you can't just flip a switch and be creative. You also can't flip a switch and be motivated. I wish it was that simple. I wish the second my alarm went off, I was motivated to get up and get my day going, but that is not my reality. The problem with motivation is it's very unpredictable. You might go through seasons, maybe a few days, a few weeks of feeling extremely motivated, but then it'll fade. And it's also not reliable. It's not consistent. It's not going to support you on those tough days or when things get hard. You really can't rely on motivation when you want to create lasting habits and reach those big goals. And we're here talking about building a life we want to live, and motivation isn't going to get us there. Yes, we need to feel motivated for where we want to go, but discipline is actually going to be the fuel to get you to arrive at the destination. Have you ever started something new? You're feeling so excited about it. You have all these ideas. Your motivation is just off the charts. And then you get into it, and maybe it's not as exciting because it gets hard. It's not easy. It's an uphill battle. Well, that's when motivation starts to fade and you have to rely on discipline to keep you going. In a simple way of explaining this, have you ever set a New Year's resolution that you thought, okay, this is my year? I know we say that all the time, but you think this is my year, this is my resolution, these are my goals, I'm going to achieve them, I'm going to stick with them. Then suddenly you wake up in March and you realize, oh, I actually haven't stuck with any of these. That's because motivation fades and you didn't put into place habits, routines, and structures to keep you disciplined on those tough days, especially if it's in February in Canada or in the Northern Hemisphere where it is dark and gray. Motivation is not going to find you. You need to rely on that discipline to keep those New Year's resolutions or any of your resolutions and goals in check and arriving at that finish line. Discipline isn't about willpower alone. It's about setting up systems and routines that you can put in place to keep you going forward and set yourself up for success. And this is how I start building systems that can keep you on track and going forward even on the days that you just don't want to. First, you want to identify the key habits that are going to work towards your goal and keep you on track as you move forward. So let's say this is setting out your gym clothes the night before or creating a meal plan for the week. For me personally, I've been trying to eat on the autoimmune protocol diet, which can be pretty tricky. So I've had to really be very, very diligent with my meal planning. I basically create a menu for my entire week, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, snacks included. And not only does this help me with knowing what I'm going to eat, it also allows me to plan my grocery shopping. So I'm creating two systems in place, not only my daily eating, but also my grocery shopping every single week. And this helps so much when I'm not motivated to cook because let's be honest, there's only so many ways you can make a sweet potato taste yummy. But this keeps me on track with making sure that I'm not eating foods that are causing an autoimmune flare up for me. And it's keeping me motivated that I am achieving my goals. You want to be establishing systems that remove obstacles. So, keeping a designated space in your home that you work from, or trying to have more healthy snacks and have those set out and planned ahead. Maybe you're trying to eat a bit healthier. Maybe you're cutting out, let's say, something like chips. Chips are an easy thing to grab, especially when you're hungry on an afternoon or an evening. I'm personally a big fan of a salty snack, so this is my weakness. But one thing you can do is remove this obstacle altogether by not buying chips. Do not buy chips at the grocery store. If they're not in your home, you're not going to be eating them. And to take that one step further, you want to replace that snack with something that is going to keep you on track and working towards your goals. So instead of having potato chips, a great alternative would be an apple with a little bit of salt dipped in peanut butter. You're still getting your salty snack, but it is a healthier alternative, and it's going to remind you that you can do this, staying on track and reaching these goals and building that life that you want to live. So think of these habits and these systems as building blocks that create a foundation that is going to lead you to have more discipline and continue to build success in your life as you achieve these different goals. I always look at things in a very visual way. And when you think of a skyscraper, you don't just start building up, you actually dig down into the ground. And the higher you go up, the higher you go down. So you want to think about this as you're kind of building that foundation that maybe you won't see from the outside, maybe other people won't see it or get it, but you know that you're building down into the ground so that you can continue to go upwards and reach those goals that you have. On the days that motivation is just nowhere to be found or it starts to fade away, you need to have non-negotiables. These are those small, manageable, remember, small, and very manageable tasks or routines that you put into place that you do no matter what, even if your inner monologue is fighting you. For me, this is when I go back to my daily routines. These are very imperative things for me to focus on that become second nature, that have built that snowball effect. If you know what I'm talking about, you know. If you don't, go to last week's video. But it's building these daily routines that you can rely on, especially when you have no desire to do those things. These non-negotiable tasks shouldn't be reaching for the stars. They should be as simple as drinking a glass of water when you wake up in the morning. The idea is to really focus on consistency, especially when your energy is low. And as someone who deals with chronic pain, when your energy is low, it is very hard to achieve these goals. So consistent small steps that remind you that you are capable, that you can achieve these things, and build that confidence, especially when the motivation is nowhere to be found, is going to keep you going forward, even if it is 1% each day. The idea is to use these tasks as anchors to keep you on track with your daily routines. When you have a few small things to do each day, ideally some things you've determined in the morning and some things in the evening, sort of to bookend your day, they keep you on track and remind you of what your big picture goals are, especially on those days that you're just not feeling your best. Another thing I love when it comes to systems is journaling. I have talked about it before and I will continue to talk about it, but journaling is also a secret weapon so many of us forget to use. Why am I working towards this big goal? What was my big idea and this big reason that I wanted to set out, determine what these new routines and habits are, and to strive for something? Forgetting our why is often how we get off track and stop remembering that these routines and systems have been put in place to set us up for success. So you want to write about your why, your reason, what these routines mean to you, and why you're chasing this goal. This shouldn't be about what other people see or how other people perceive you. This really is about yourself and introspection. If you're not sure about your why, you're honestly not going to achieve it. You need to be very clear about what you're doing, what you're sacrificing, what you're working towards, so that on these days where you have no motivation, you can course correct, get back on track, and keep working towards that big goal. Sometimes having journaling prompts that will help you think about things outside of the box, or even remind you of what you're working towards. Like, what are these daily tasks? What are these daily habits? And what are they doing to set you up for success? Again, breaking them down into these small manageable things and asking yourself why each little piece is going to be put together to create this big puzzle that you're working towards. And you know, I love to talk about progress over perfection. So this is when journaling can really help you look at your progress. If you're not able to recognize these small steps, this 1% of change, you're not able to see when you have accomplished something big. You need to celebrate those small wins, even when they don't feel like wins, but you stayed on track during the week that you had no motivation. Maybe during a flare up and you were dealing with chronic pain. Being able to track any progression and remind yourself that you are doing the work and you are capable of doing hard things. If you have a vision board, this is a great time to pull it out, especially if you're a visual person. And if you don't have a vision board, this could be a great weekend project for you. Is a lot of times we know what our goals are. We have maybe set that out on a to-do list, a checklist in our journal, but sometimes seeing it visually helps us remind ourselves of why we're really working towards this, and it can also help create that feeling of arriving at this goal. The vision board also might spark a bit of creativity and maybe even motivation because you can visually see the life that you're putting into place, the life that you're manifesting, and also using discipline to create. Another great way to maintain discipline is through accountability. I talked about this in my habits video, so if you haven't watched that, you can go back and watch that one. But some really great ways to track and hold yourself accountable with your habits is through a habit tracker app or even the notes app in your phone to make sure that you are staying true to these non-negotiables you've put out in front of you. But it's also important to be accountable to someone other than yourself. It's easy to be a little wishy-washy with yourself, but when you have other people in your corner supporting you and encouraging you to stay on track, you're not only going to feel that support, but you're also going to feel that little bit of motivation to remain true to these goals you've set out. So whether it's your friend, your family, a partner, or even an online support group, these are great places to share not only what your big goal is, but also these small daily systems and routines that you've put in place that you need to rely on using discipline and that you want these friends or your accountability buddy to hold you accountable to. Not only they're going to hold you accountable to these goals, they're also going to encourage you and celebrate you and remind you of the why you're doing it. Ideally, they will also check in with you. So sometimes these online support groups or one designated friend where you have a call every month. I'm saying this as someone who has a call every month with one of my friends as our accountability girl time call to make sure that we are there for each other, reminding each other why we're doing what we're doing, and also celebrating each other. This is a big part of accountability that I don't think is often talked about. Is it's not just about having someone encourage you to stay on track and remind you what you said, but it's someone who's there to remind you that you've already accomplished so much and you're going to continue to accomplish these things. They're celebrating you, the small things and the big things. Discipline doesn't have to be a solo journey, and I personally don't think it should be solo. This is when you do want to rely on community, whether it's your friends, an online community. Maybe I'm biased, but even this YouTube, you can jump into the comments and share what's working for you and maybe what's not working. Personally, I think having others cheer you on, it makes a huge difference. For me, this was very clear during my half marathon I ran years ago, but still sits with me. Around 18 kilometers, I didn't think I could finish. Yes, there was only 3 kilometers more to go, but if you've ever ran even 5 kilometers, you know how hard it can be to motivate yourself when you just don't feel like going anymore. So at 18 kilometers, I'm trying to, talk myself up, remind myself why I'm doing this, and I turn a corner and I enter the cheer section. And suddenly, strangers who I don't even know are cheering for me. And yes, some friends and family were there as well. But this motivation from other people, this support from a community, reminded me why I was doing what I was doing. And it made me see, hey, I've already accomplished 18 kilometers. I only have 3 more to go. Whether I run them at my best pace or at a slower pace, I can do it. And that motivation from this amazing cheer section got me to cross the finish line and realize I was able to accomplish my goals, not only relying on myself, but also using my discipline and having the accountability and the support from other people. So remember, discipline is not about relying on motivation. It is fleeting, it is not consistent, and it's not the best way to set yourself up for success. It's really about building these habits and routines, determining your non-negotiables and sticking with them, and asking other people for support and not being afraid to bring in a community to help you achieve your goals. You want to start small. These tasks, again, should be manageable everyday tasks, routines that you can stack and build up so that when things get tough, whether it is a busy work season, maybe you're going through a chronic pain flare-up, or you're just not feeling it, you're stuck in a rut, These are the things that you can lean back on that are second nature. That's your discipline that's going to keep you going forward even when you don't feel like you want to. And I promise once you start putting these small steps into place, you create these systems for you that are designed for you to reach your goals, you're going to start to see how they're building up. This foundation is building you upwards and forwards and towards your goals. If you found any of this helpful, I would love to know what stuck out to you. So let me know in the comments below. Or if you're struggling with your goals or finding your daily routines or your non-negotiables, that's what we're here for, is to help one another. So jump into the comments, rely on the community, ask for support. I am here always to be your accountability buddy and remind you that you are not alone in this. Motivation may not always be there, but discipline is something you can always rely on. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, this would be a great time. There are still a few more discipline videos coming out. And if you haven't watched the previous ones, you should go back in time and watch all of those so you can get motivated. Remind yourself of your why and remember that you are able to do these hard things and you will accomplish your goals.